I'm now sitting inside Drumbeg Parish Church, which is dedicated to St. Patrick. It's situated about 4 miles from Belfast on the Malone Road, Upper Malone in fact. And adjoining us is a very old churchyard, and many old stones among it. Among these is one to the memory of James Haddock. Now, the memory of James Haddock immediately conjures up one of the great ghost stories of Northern Ireland. In fact, probably one of the greatest ghost stories of all time. I want to tell it to you. James Haddock died in 1657. He was a farmer of Leggs Hill at Malone, just a bit near Belfast. And he had some good friends, among whom was Francis Taverner. And Francis Taverner was on his way into Belfast, having been out to Hillsborough on the business of his master, who was the Earl of Donegal. And Francis Taverner was quietly coming over the Drum Bridge in the evening when suddenly his horse shied and almost unseated him. And he saw a figure appearing close by, and he couldn't identify it, but he was quite scared. And then this voice said about things that Francis Taverner and James Haddock had in common. And so he gradually identified this apparition as the ghost of James Haddock. And Haddock required him to take some action to have his son repossessed, because when Haddock died, Haddock's wife Amandel had married a man called Jacob Davis, and Davis had been the executor of Haddock's will, but he decided that he would cut out James's son and substitute his own son into the will, and Haddock was displeased. Taverner, of course, made all the excuses and said, nothing I can do about it. And, well, Haddock said, I want you to go and see Amandel and Jacob Davis and tell them that they've got to get this fixed up right, or I will never cease to haunt you. And poor old Taverner was so scared. The apparition disappeared. And Taverner went on his way down into Belfast, and there he tried to escape from this apparition, but no matter where he went, it kept on appearing to haunt him. But Haddock said, what have you done about getting my son repossessed? And Taverner said, well, what will I do? He said, look, you've got to go and see Amandel and Jacob Davis and tell them to get the thing fixed up, because I'll never rest until it is fixed up. Taverner then decided that he would enlist the help of Dr. Downes, who was the vicar of Belfast, and he went to him and told him the story. Downes was so much impressed with the story that he decided that there was such substance in it that they would make a deputation who would go to Amandel and to Jacob Davis. And they did, but unfortunately, they only laughed at them. And they couldn't believe that James Haddock had visited Taverner. So failing to be able to persuade them, Dr. Downes and Francis Taverner decided that they would take the case to Carrickfergus Court. Now, in those days, the courts were ecclesiastical courts, and it was under the jurisdiction of a famous bishop, Bishop Jeremy Taylor, that this case came to court. And of course, the whole countryside had known of this for some time, and round the courthouse there were all sorts of people thronging along, horses tied, carriages and traps, and the countryside was agog waiting for the result of this case, because the visitation had been widely circulated, and poor old Taverner was the centre of a great deal of attention that day. And he came into Carrickfergus Court without a clue as to what should happen. James Haddock had said to him, when I bring the case to court, I'll provide the witness, don't you worry. So Taverner proceeded to bring the case to the court, and at the time when the case was called, the usher stood up and shouted, "Call James Haddock." And everybody laughed their heads off, because James Haddock had been dead for 4 years, and the countryside knew it. And the second time he shouted, "Call James Haddock." And the third time when the usher stood up and shouted, "Call James Haddock," there was a tremendous mighty wind which shook the building, a clap of thunder, a flash of lightning. A hand appeared in the book, and a voice shouted, "Is that enough?" And they gave probation to James Haddock's son and threw out the case of Jacob Davis. Now, Jacob Davis was such a dejected man, and he was so mocked by the community as he came out through the gates of the court that day, that he rode off in a tremendous fury. And as he rode home, would you believe it, his horse stumbled and he fell and he broke his neck. Now, Haddock, of course, ceased to haunt this fellow taverner. I don't know what happened to him after that, but as far as James Haddock was concerned, he returned to rest in Drumbeg churchyard, and we'll show you where he came to rest, and we'll show you where his stone is. Here lies the body of Lieutenant James Haddock, who dwelled in Malone. He deceased the 18th of December 1657